Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel for vlog number 2. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're all back. Thank you so much. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all the messages of support, the love, the comments, the likes, the shares, the mentions, the subscriptions. It's been mad, absolutely mad. But I'm hoping if there's one thing I can do, it's to try and cut a bit of the stigma out of grieving and speaking about grieving, because it's part of life, unfortunately. And you know, I just don't think people talk about grief enough, and I think more people that are grieving want to talk about grief but don't actually know how to address it. So I'm hoping that, like I said on vlog 1, that these videos just help to fetch a little bit of warmth to your life, and hopefully they're a little bit relatable. So yeah, so here we are, vlog number 2. Now, I've recorded this so many times now, and I'm hoping this is going to be the final one, because I've gone back and forth thinking, oh no, it's so wrong, like it doesn't flow right, like Jamie, you're so jumbled. And my apologies if I do seem a little bit all over the shop, but you know, there's a lot to get through, there's a lot to relive, there's a lot to process. So I've got some notes, so if I'm looking down, that's why. So thank you, yes, again, for coming back for vlog number 2. Let's get into it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about chapel arrest, lead up to Mum's funeral, and starting to talk and take those steps about grief admin, as well as, I guess, what would or what did help me during that first month, because boy, it was hard. It was tiring, it was exhausting, it was mentally draining, it was physically draining, it was just, oh, it was so hard. So yeah, I guess first things first, let's speak about a brief sort of like overview of Mum's funeral, the planning, the event, you know, leading up to seeing Mum at the chapel arrest, things like that. Okay, so I think it's important to say here that there is a bit of a trigger warning here, that some viewers may find this content distressing, and if you do, then I apologise and do advise that you don't sort of, you know, watch too much or turn off where you feel is sort of enough. I'm going to try and keep it as light-hearted as possible, and not try and go too deep, but of course we are talking about grief, and some things I say may be upsetting or triggering for you to hear. So let's go on to Mum's funeral and like the lead up and the planning and things like that. So God, it was a busy month. Let's just say that first off. Oh my gosh, it was busy. So we had to wait a month from Mum passed away on the 25th of January, and Mum's funeral was on the 24th of February. And the reason why it took that long was because it was in COVID, and there was just no availability to get in for like the chapel of rest, to get her, you know, ready at the chapel of rest and things like that, and just the documentation side just took forever and things like that. But I'm going to go very quickly sort of like over funeral, because I want to talk more on the grief admin side to the funeral, because that's the more important bit. So of course we decided on having a bagpiper there, because Mum was being Scottish, we had to of course have that. We also decided on like lilies and roses, because they were Mum's favourite flowers. We chose Mum to have like a wicker coffin. This was purely because Mum loved nature and being out and about, and it just felt very fitting for Mum. The only thing I would say with this wicker basket sort of style coffin was we actually found out I think it was on the day actually of Mum's funeral that we couldn't carry her. She had to be like on a trolley and wheeled in. We couldn't actually carry the coffin because of the material of the coffin, which I think, you know, is something that I didn't even think to ask, and you know, it probably was something that just sort of like slipped the funeral director's mind. But just be mindful when you are making those decisions. If you are wanting to carry the coffin, then you will need a bit more of like a sturdier coffin than what we chose to have. So I will pop a photo here of Mum's like on the day of a funeral, and just so you can see. It was truly such a beautiful day. It was so beautiful. She had a beautiful funeral. All things considered, it was extremely sad and hard because it was during COVID as well. So of course, you know, we were limited on numbers, we were limited on this, on that. I couldn't kiss the coffin, I couldn't do this, I couldn't go near this, there was just so many rules, and it got to a point where I actually thought, this is an actual joke, like, I can't cope with this. But, you know, you have to do what was told at that time, unfortunately, and it was just awful timing, is the only way I can say it. I guess touching on Chapel of Rest. Now, a few people have actually messaged me and said, you know, I've lost a loved one and I don't know whether to go to the Chapel of Rest. Now, again, that isn't something that I can actually advise on. I can give you my experience, tell you about my experience, but I can't advise you on. You just know if you need to do that, you know. For me, I felt that I needed to do that. I actually didn't see or speak to Mum. Me and Mum had a fallout, and of course, unfortunately, no one has a time above their head of when they're going to pass, and it was just horrific, the timing that, you know, I'd not seen or spoke to Mum and buried, you know, the hatchet with the like, argument that we had, and it was just crap. It was really crap, and I decided to write her a letter and take that to the Chapel of Rest, which was why I wanted to go to see her at the Chapel of Rest, so I could sort of like bury the problem that Mum and I had with Mum. And that's for you completely to make that decision on. Don't think there's any right or wrong way. I don't feel that, you know, if you go or if you don't go, that, you know, your loved one, it makes, I'm jumbling words, but you can't say that you don't love someone if you haven't gone. If you've chosen not to go, then that's completely fine. You have to go with the emotions of how you're feeling. So one thing I will say here is, don't ever feel like you're pressurised to go to the Chapel of Rest or go to see the body of the loved one. You know, it's completely up to you and how you want to process things. So I did decide to go and see Mum. Like I said, I took a letter and I took a little lamb. I'll include a photo here. So I decided to put a little lamb in Mum's coffin with her, and the reason was my nickname is 𝐓𝐲, Mum's nickname was Dee the Lamb, and my dad used to pretend to be called Sheepdog Sam. I don't know, we sound crazy saying that out loud, but it was just a little tie to me, Mum and Dad, basically. That's all I really should have said, actually. So like a crazy lady saying, yes, I'm called 𝐓𝐲. But yeah, they were our nicknames, and that was our little like Three Musketeer thing. So yeah, I popped a teddy in with Mum, and 𝐓𝐲 has been with me ever since, and I sleep with him every night and cuddle him and just, you know, make sure that it's like my connection with Mum I see that Teddy as. So it's very special, and I'd advise doing that. You know, if you feel that you want to pop something in there, Mum and me got matching bracelets as well, so we got matching bracelets that I popped in the coffin, one on her and one for me. You can do things like taking locks of the hair. I didn't do that, but I got a handprint, a copy of Mum's handprint. And yeah, there's loads. I would definitely recommend you speaking to your funeral director on, you know, if you're wanting anything like that doing, then they'll be able to help and sort of advise and support you with that. But the handprint for me was lovely. I've got something I want to do with that later on in my lifetime. When I decide to have a family, I will definitely be getting that out. So yeah, it's a nice keepsake to have for sure. But actually seeing Mum was a complete shock. It was horrific. I think I mentioned in vlog 1, I'd actually got into my head that it wasn't going to be Mum. I know that sounds crazy, but I slowly learned that that's the denial sort of stage. The grief, 5 stages of grief, by the way, I genuinely think are such a jumble. I thought they were going to be like a tick list. So I thought, right, okay, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. And I work through them and tick them off, and that's how grief goes. Not at all. Even now, 2 years after Mum's passed away, I still go through denial that she's around somewhere, that she's still here. Even though I've gone through the funeral, even though I've seen her, I still go through stages. That is completely normal. So don't feel like, if you're going through your grieving journey, don't feel like, you know, that's unnormal, natural, because it's not. I think it's part of the grieving process, and I think it's part of us trying to make sense and piece the puzzle together of the lost one, you know. And yeah, grief stages definitely are not a tick list at all. But I guess going into sort of that, I did have a really rough time, and this is something that I haven't spoken about all that much. But when Mum passed away, obviously it was during COVID, and I was restricted on numbers. And as soon as the funeral director said that to me, I instantly thought, how on earth am I going to pick people to attend Mum's funeral? Like, how are me and Dad going to pick people? So I spoke with Dad and I said, you know, let's do, obviously, me, you, immediate family. And then I'm going to go on Mum's Facebook and I'm going to work back who she's been in contact with. I'm going to work through who she's seen last week, the week before, like leading up to her death and things like that. So I did all that and I wrote all the names down and we got it all confirmed. And I'd got a guy to come and video the full service, and he did an amazing job. I will pop his link below. If you're around the South Yorkshire area, then I highly recommend these guys. They were phenomenal for the service that they provided. They really took care of Dad and I, and nothing was too much pressure. They made sure that we were happy with the content, and we videoed it because Mum had friends and family all over the world. We had people in Australia linking in to the video, we had people in Norway, we had people in Spain, we had people in Germany, France, everywhere, literally everywhere. And we did have family as well that couldn't attend in Scotland and Ireland. So of course it was really important that we could get footage out to them so they felt like they were there as well. But because of the numbers, I got a lot of hate. And we're going to go into it today because this is something I think that happens when somebody passes away, I think everyone sort of says, oh, there's always some sort of drama, you know, when someone passes away, there's always something that goes on, or there's always some sort of like Chinese whisper or something. There's just always some drama, isn't there? Everyone has to stick the 2 pence in, but you're going to hear it firsthand here today. And I hope that 2 things I want to clear up here. I want to clear up what actually happened for the people that half know or half don't know what's gone on. But secondly, this is completely normal. These things happen because I asked the funeral directors what I was going through. Had she experienced it? And she said, yeah. She was like, this happens all the time. So where to begin? Okay. I mentioned there that we were restricted on numbers. Now, when I told a friend this, it was very clear that they didn't like that. And they were going to turn up no matter what, okay? And I had to stress, you know, we're in restricted guidance at the minute, you know, and we're just taking the advice from the government, not the funeral directors or myself or my dad or anything to do with the funeral. This was a government thing. And like I say, we were stuck on the numbers. Now, when I told some of her friends, there was about 6 of them, and I said, look, unfortunately, I have to give priority to my mum's family, you know. And unfortunately, you can't attend the funeral, but I have got somebody in to record the full service, not just the crematorium, the full service. So the church, they're going to follow us everywhere. It will literally be like you are there, but you won't be there in person. You'll be sat behind a computer screen or a phone, but you will be. I'm making this as good as I can for you to be part of the day. But it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough. And they made my life hell, is the only way I can describe it. 2 weeks, I think I had. About 10 to 14 days, I had hell. These women, I might add, I'm saying we're friends of my mum. These women had they went to school with my mum, and they were friends. I met them when I was about 22 years old, so I'd gone 22 years without knowing who these friends of my mum were. And they didn't go to my mum's wedding. They didn't go to like, they weren't involved with like me growing up. They were never round at our house. My mum never went to see them. They never came to see my mum. Like, they were very distant in like what I would say were like my mum's main bits of her life. You know, her growing up, her starting a family, her getting married, all of those important things. And they weren't there for any of that. And then suddenly they were all best friends with her, and I knew who my mum's best friends were. I knew who was there for my mum. I'd seen those people throughout my childhood. But then the hate started. Social media is such a powerful but also such a negative thing as well. It can be positive or negative, right? And for me, in those 2 weeks, it was horrendous. These people were like, on my mum's Facebook was still activated, and they were posting like some of the most horrific, disrespectful things, knowing full well that me and Dad would see what were being posted on there. It got that bad that I had to delete my mum's Facebook, which I really didn't want to do. I really didn't want to do that because I liked Facebook being there because I could see photos, like memories and photos and things like that. And these women almost made me delete my mum's Facebook. And that wasn't something that I chose to do lightly. I sat and I thought long and hard about it, all the consequences and things like that. And, you know, I downloaded all the photos and everything. I got everything off of Facebook that I needed to before I deleted it. But the messages that they were putting up there, bearing in mind these women are like, they were 56, right? Knocking on the door of 60, and how they made a 25-year-old girl feel that had just lost her mom. I hope in their lifetime they never experience that, because they made me feel so low. Dangerously low. Some of the messages that I actually received, all because they couldn't come to a funeral, were actually mind-blowing. I received messages like, you were dead to your mum. I received messages like, your mum was, that you were never born. Your mum will be doing this in heaven. Your mum will be not thinking about you. And they just made my life hell. Even on the day of my mum's funeral, I was getting messages on the evening of, I just cremated my mum. Sorry. I'd just been at my mum's funeral that day, and the messages that I received that evening, I'll never forget. They were awful. Absolutely awful. The words that they used, how they spoke to me, I just hope that they never experience anything like that. But I want to talk about this because I'm sure this goes on in the world, and I'm sure people, I'm sure this happens in the world, and I'm sure that, you know, things happen when people pass away, and unfortunately nastiness comes out, and I just didn't need that on that night. And one thing I would say is Josh found that extremely hard, because obviously I was so upset. I'd had like 2 weeks of these messages. I'd then obviously gone to my mum's funeral, and then it carried on that evening. And I kept saying to them, please, can you just leave me alone? Like, I don't need this. And it got to the point where I had to just block them, because I just needed them away and not to be able to contact me, because the messages were just horrific. Absolutely horrific. I don't know if I'll include some, but I might just show you some of the shit that I was dealing with, because it was horrendous. And I sat and I spoke to my dad and Josh about it, and my dad turned around and said to me, do you know what, Jay? He said, they weren't there for all of these like really important times of your mum's life. He said, but then on top of that, he said, do you think your mum would want her friends talking to you like that? And absolutely not. And when he said that to me, I was like, do you know what? You're not actually true friends of my mum, because if you were true friends of my mum, you'd be supporting her daughter. No matter what happened between me and mum, that was between me and mum. And like any mother-daughter relationship, any relationship you have in life, you know, you do fall out with people. It doesn't stay all rosy and flowery and beautiful all the time. You know, life doesn't work like that. Life does have shit. And we've just gone through a bit of a rough patch, and I am 99.9% sure that me and mum would have sorted things out. We would have spoken. We would have, you know, worked through things. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. And if there's one important message I want to get out today, it's just be kind, and if you know somebody that is going through what I went through and receiving such hate and, you know, struggling, then it does happen, unfortunately, and people are really nasty, and, you know, you just have to try and just think of the good times. And that's all I did. After I'd spoken to my dad, and my dad said, you know, like, are they true friends of your mum if they're talking to you like that? And I thought, you know, no, they're not. So after I'd sort of like dealt with all of that, yeah, I lost a lot of weight. I was very poorly during, you know, there's no way to sugarcoat it. I was very poorly and I was struggling so much with the funeral and the changes that had happened in life, and all the pressure that I felt to just make sure that mum's day was special and things like that. Yeah, it was a lot, but I didn't need that on that day. And yeah, if there's one message I want to get across, it's just be bloody kind. Don't hide behind a computer. Don't hide behind a phone. Don't message people in such a disrespectful way. Mum used to always say to me, speak to others how you want to be spoken to. I think that's the right way to say it. I've got a bit of brain fog still. Treat others how you would want to be treated. That's it. So that's what I try to do in life. And, you know, unfortunately people can be nasty. Unfortunately people do hide behind a phone and message. But I did think people that were, you know, knocking on the door of 60 years of age would have a little bit more consideration and, you know, care about somebody that had just lost their mum at 25 years old. But apparently that wasn't a thing. So one thing I guess from that was look after people that are grieving. You never know what's happening behind a closed door. You never know the full story. And yeah, just always be kind. Why be nasty, you know? There's no need to be. So leading on from that, a really important thing that I want to speak of today is grief admin. Now, I did touch a little bit on this and like what grief looks like and things like that. Now, some important things, I guess, leading on from, you know, all of the shit that I was going through, is the grief admin side was so difficult. I didn't realise how many people I had to notify of like mum's death. And there was actually, I'm just going to go on to my notes because this is an important bit. And the grief admin, I actually put down here, we actually received like one of the last things 2 days after my mum's second death anniversary. So it took us 2 years basically to complete grief admin. And that 2 years, you were on with some, and I felt like I couldn't actually like, almost like close that chapter, because there was always something else that was going on, or, you know, insurance or pension or notifying the doctors, the council, like there was always somebody that I felt needed updating. And one thing I will say that really did help us was when you get in touch with the registrar, they should or probably will mention a service called Tell Us Once, and this was brilliant. Of course, it was something that wasn't known. I'd not even heard about it before, but Tell Us Once basically allows people to notify the government departments about the death in one single process. So what that allowed us to do was When we got the death certificates through, make sure you get plenty of them, by the way. I think we ended up getting about 15 copies because you have to send originals to a lot of people. So just make sure that you do get a lot of those in, because you're just firing them out all over to sort things out on the grief admin side. But Tell Us Once was really good. You just include, you know, the driving licence, national insurance number, the passport of the past person, and then it just notifies the pensions, the banks, the council, just everyone. But it was really, really handy and really helped us with just notifying people. And then obviously people got in touch with us and said, oh, can you send an original copy of, you know, the death certificate across? And that helped speed a lot of the process up, I think. Of course, it was my first time doing so I think it did speed things up. But grief admin, please, I'm begging people, talk to loved ones about their will, funeral arrangements if they want to speak about that. If they don't want to speak about it, I completely agree. I don't think I would. But find out where the life insurance is. Who do they contact in the event of their death? Speak more openly about this, please. If there's anything you take away from this video, this needs to be it. Get a document packed together, a folder, and put in there your will, your life insurance, your pension, a copy of your contract, your work employment contract. Get a copy of that in there, because that was something that we didn't have, and again we had to wait like 18 months because we didn't know about things that were in mum's contracts for her employment. Anything that you can relate to. I will probably attach a list in the comments below of things that I think should be in this pack. Please put these packs somewhere safe and keep them at hand, and you know where they are if anything should happen in the event of a death, because I cannot tell you how much that will help you. We were piecing pieces of the puzzle together. I didn't know who my mum banked with. I didn't know who, if she had a will, did she not have a will? I didn't know who her pensions were with. Did she have a life insurance? Another thing on life insurance, mum did have life insurance, however, she'd not taken it out basically in time, so it was basically void. So things like that, please just get life insurance. Please just get all of those important documents in a safe place, because we never know when our time's going to come, and I can't stress the importance of how much that will help you with notifying people, getting all the documentation, and just helping you so much with that stress. So please, I will say it again, get documentation together. It will help the loved ones that are left behind no end. Honestly, you will not believe how much it will help people. So, to round up, stages of grief, of course, everyone grieves different, and what I thought grief looked like is very different to how my 2 years have been. And I thought it was very much like a clear page, like I said, with a tick list, and you just go through and tick, 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 tick. It doesn't work like that. You'll hear things and you'll be back to square one. You'll see things, you'll be back to square one. You'll then go through stages of denial. I went through stages of real bad night terrors after seeing my mum at the Chapel of Rest. And this is all part of the grieving journey. And, you know, I really hope that together as a collective, we can try and stomp some of the stigma out of grief, get people talking more openly about. They always say, ask someone how they're feeling twice. Because when you ask someone, well, how are you? You know, hiya, how are you? Sort of thing. I say it daily in work. But how are you feeling? Ask again. and the response will be different. When you're in that flow of conversation, hi, how are you, you know, and you, yeah, I'm fine. But 9 times out of 10 people aren't. So let's ask people, how are they feeling? If you know someone grieving, the best tip that I could give is make them meals, batch cook meals for them. It will help them so much. Honestly, if you know anyone that's grieving or going through this at the minute, batch cook meals. I lost 3 stone during the first couple of months of my mum passing, I think in the first month actually, and it was horrendous. And yeah, just batch cook for people, make sure people are eating. They need to eat to be able to be headstrong for, you know, the grieving process. It's emotionally and mentally and physically draining, and you need all the energy that you can get from food. So yeah, that gives us sort of snip on how people change and how people can change during a death. Today's been tough. It's been a little bit all over the place, but I'm hoping this one was going to be a little bit all over because it was a bit of an unusual time. And I'm hoping for the next one, we're going to start talking a little bit more about the feelings and the anger, the sadness, the hate, the love, the laughter, the care, all of the emotions. We're going to talk more on that. And this is where we're really going to delve now into the grieving journey. And I think vlog 3 moving forwards is how I'm really going to, you know, try and offer that comfort blanket. But I hope you've enjoyed. Please like, please share, please comment, subscribe. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in vlog number 3. See you all soon. Take care, and I'm sending you so much love if you're on your grieving journey. Bye.